Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special live show edition of Women of Grace. I'm Johnnette Benkovic. Yesterday, the Ad Hoc Committee for Religious Liberty of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops issued a statement on religious liberty entitled Our First Most Cherished Liberty. It comes in the wake of the Health and Human Services announcement on January 20th regarding religious institutions to provide insurance coverage for contraception, abortifacient drugs, and sterilization. In our program today, our guests will unpack the bishop's statement and its call to action as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
We are women of grace round the throne of the Lord Most High. And we lift up our praise from the depths of our souls. Hear our cry.
Of Independence defines life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as inalienable rights. How do these rights function and protect a free society? What principles undergird them? And what happens to a free society if those principles are expunged from the body politic? These are the questions our guests will discuss with us today in light of the bishop's statement on religious liberty, released yesterday, entitled Our First Most Cherished Liberty. Let's welcome Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse, a doctor of economics and founder of the Ruth Institute, an organization dedicated to the principle that marriage between one man and one woman is the proper context for child rearing and intimacy. Guest Maria Montserrat Alvarado, Director of Operations for the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, a public interest, legal, and educational institute that protects the free expression of all faiths, and Father Edmund Sylvia, a member of Holy Cross, theological advisor, and chaplain to Women of Grace. Welcome, 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 everyone, to this special live show edition of Women of Grace. And we have the opportunity to talk about a very important subject today. It's interesting to me because we had planned to talk about religious liberty and morality, and then yesterday our bishops issued this statement on religious liberty entitled Our First Most Cherished Liberty. And so I think it's a proper context to phrase the discussion we were going to have. It was a stunning statement, wasn't it, Father?
Yes, absolutely. Timely, we were waiting for this to happen. This committee formed not very long ago with Bishop Laurie, who is soon to be Archbishop of Baltimore, as at its head. But very important action by the bishops to prepare us for what we may encounter over the months and years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Monse, you have been involved in this discussion in a public way since the very beginning. You've done lots of interviews on lots of various news programs, et cetera, regarding it. What do you find amazing in particular about this particular statement?
I think that the call to action in this statement is definitely what we were all waiting for. It's unprecedented, and it's definitely necessary because religious institutions and organizations are being left with no choice. That's definitely what this mandate is doing. So a call to action is the push that we needed to be able to all go out and do exactly what myself and other people at the Becket Fund are doing, which is getting into the media to rebuke all of the messages that are confusing all of the public on what this mandate is actually doing.
Yeah, I think one of the most confusing messages that's been out there is the phrasing of this particular mandate in terms of women's health. And, you know, definitely. Jennifer, you've done so much work in this area with regard to the Ruth Institute and trying to tie in the necessity of a moral base and a moral framework if we're going to enjoy the privileges that we have enjoyed since the inception of the United States of America. We can't have freedom without some kind of undergirding principles. And this whole issue regarding women's health, to me, is a setup, frankly. It's a sales pitch to take away religious liberty.
Well, it's not only a sales pitch to take away religious liberty, but it's also I think at the end of the day, there's a whole group of people who have their alternative vision of sexual morality, the place of sexuality in our lives and in society, and their vision is, frankly, at odds with the Catholic vision. And the Catholic vision, of course, is not just our private property. It was, for a long time, the unified vision of all of the Christian churches and other traditional religions as well, which is the idea that sex belongs inside marriage, that marriage is a proper context for both child rearing and sexual activity. But the new idea is that there is no proper context. You get to do whatever you want, anytime you want, and that sex is basically a recreational activity with no moral or social significance. And in order to do that, you have to sterilize the sexual act. You have to somehow say and somehow make it be true that these pesky little babies don't keep popping up. Because as soon as little babies pop up, then you can see right away that, there's somebody else involved here and some moral basis has to be drawn for how you're going to treat them. And so what we're really coming to, I think, is a kind of confrontation between two different worldviews, two different views of the place of human sexuality in our private lives and in public life. And one will displace the other. Yeah. And for a long time, one worldview has been promoting itself under the guise of choice, without ever actually saying what they're choosing, right? Without ever offering a positive defense of, this is a good way of life. This is a positive way of life. This is good for women. This is good for society. No one really actually thinks that. So they stay away from actually talking about that and just talk about choice and act like they're neutral. But in fact, it's now quite obvious that they were never neutral. Choice was never enough for this group of people. They always had in mind to promote something positive from their point of view, something they're affirming something. They're not just saying everybody gets to do what they want. They have something particular that they're trying to affirm.
And there's absolutely no way that they can promote this as a good, because all of the research is in favor of
our position.
The position that has been taken morally by the church and by social conservatives. Yeah,
I definitely think that that's one of the many schemes that are being used now. This all of a sudden came up as a threat to women. Where was this threat before, if it was so large? Before January 20th, all of a sudden this war against women popped up. And it's offensive to me, honestly, as a woman who doesn't believe in this, that the government would think that all women fall into this one block, that vote the same way, think the same way, have the same morals, and don't have their own sense of religious liberty. No one is saying this about men. Men can have their freedom to choose and vote in any way that they want, but we're being pegged as women into this one block that has to think in one way. And it's offensive to me that they think that I don't have the moral intelligence to say, I disagree. It's definitely the issue here. They're kicking the can down the road to get past the election and then actually come in and create whatever rule that they want. And it's definitely the greatest affront to religious liberty of our time.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this, Father, for a moment here, because I think that both what Monsi and Jennifer are saying is extremely important.
Sure is.
And what we're hearing here is that there's, and I think it's very fair to say, and must be said, there is definitely an agenda here. And the agenda is to silence a religious voice in the marketplace, in the public square, to remove a religious voice from the discussion of ideas. Because if it stays there, then you've got a moral standard that constantly has got to be looked at. Sure. So they want to silence this. And one of the efforts here, and I think our bishops obviously are quite aware of this and have stated it in this statement, is that freedom of religion is what is protected by the First Amendment, but there is an effort now to subtly change that language slightly so it sounds almost the same, but really carries quite a different meaning. And it's to change that First Amendment right, the language of it, from freedom of religion to freedom of worship, sure. Which is a huge step not only to marginalizing people of religious thought, people of religious conviction, but to silence them altogether from the marketplace of ideas.
Absolutely. And it's not that there aren't leaders within the Catholic Church who have recognized this coming. They have. Pope Benedict has talked about this, growing secularism. Archbishop Chaput of Philadelphia has most eloquently spoken about this in many presentations. Wish you could see the list of talks he's given on this topic over the last 3 to 5 years. His book, Render unto Caesar, I think, the best piece, looking at this in language that's quite understandable and yet lays it out historically, etc. He's certainly one that in particular has talked about the fact that we live now with a certain kind of secularism, which is hostile. Our Holy Father said this as well, hostile to religious expression, to religious benefits and activities being brought into the public square. So they're happy to privatize it, this kind of, like I said, secularism that really is highly intolerant of Christianity. You can do what you want at home, just don't bring it into the market square.
Right. You can do what you want in your parish. You can go to Mass on Sunday if you want to do that. You can go to religious services on Sunday if you want to do that. You can go to synagogue on Saturday if you want to do that. But keep your mouth shut when it comes to political issues.
The limits on freedom of expression are astounding, because you're basically taking the First Amendment and chopping off that freedom of expression aspect of it because it relates to a religious subject. And you're giving people a second-class citizenship. So basically, I leave my robust rights at home when I come out into the public square, and I'm a second-class citizen. And then when I come home, I'm full again. Where did we in the United States lose the reality of being a real, full American citizen? It's definitely a move in the wrong direction.
But I want to just change one little thing that you said, because I think it's not, in a certain way, it's not religion. It's all about sex, right? They're not after us because of our views on the Trinity. They're not after us because they don't like what we think about transubstantiation. They're after us because they don't like what we think about sex. All of the threats to religious liberty, in one way or another, come down to that. And so, there's this group of people out there who believe that, they could be having a lifetime of carefree sex if it weren't for the Pope. If the Pope and all those pesky Catholics would just shut up and go away and stop making us feel bad, it would all be great, And that's what I think is the issue. That's what they're after.
And
all
the
these
vehicle by which
about.
they're doing all of that is through the First Amendment and the Constitution. It has nothing to do with the women's issue. It's all about what they're trying to do to our rights.
Well, and I'm so very happy that the Becket Fund, the Ruth Institute, our bishops continue to reframe this in the proper manner by saying that this is about religious liberty. It's about religious freedom.
Yes.
It's not about women's rights. Trying to communicate that is a very difficult task because the media has obviously an interest in trumpeting the other position. Father Ed.
I would add one qualifier to what Jennifer said, though, because as certainly sex is the tip of the iceberg, but it really is a rejection of moral life is what's being rejected.
I agree.
Because living in a time of relativism, any holding on to moral truths as we define them is a poke in the eye of somebody else, and they don't want anybody poking them in the eye.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go to our first break, and friends, when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion today with Father Edmund Sylvia, Montse Alvarado, and Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse as we look at the statement the bishops issued yesterday, our first most cherished liberty, and continue this discussion on a very, very important topic. We'll be back. Welcome back, friends. We are visiting with our guest today. We have Father Edmund Sylvia with us on set today. We have Montse Alvarado from the Becket Fund and Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse, founder of the Ruth Institute. We're talking about the statement that was released yesterday by the bishops of the United States of America discussing our first most cherished liberty, which is religious freedom. We want to invite you to get out to Grace Place. Grace Place is our social network available for you on our website, www.womenofgrace.com. graceplace.com. Ladies, we're asking for you to join up and become a member and come together with women from all over the United States and Canada and Ireland and many other countries to discuss issues of importance and also to be of a support and assistance to each other. Lots of good advice goes on at Grace Place, as well as interesting blogs to read. So get out to www.womenofgrace.com, click on the Grace Place icon, and sign up and become a member. You know, as we're sitting here and we're discussing this very important issue, we left with a statement that indeed, you know, morality is what is at risk here, often being framed within the sexual dimension. And we realize that this whole issue of religious liberty is the linchpin of those other First Amendment rights that we have. Because as you were putting out, Montse, you know, if you take away freedom of religion, then you're taking away freedom of speech about religion in the public square, and everything becomes undone. I want to talk about this, and I want to get a little philosophical for a moment. So here is my question. This compartmentalization that the secularists and relativists today like to promote is really impossible for the human person, because the human person is an integrated whole. And if you are an individual who is a secularist, if you're an individual who's a relativist in worldview, if you're an individual who's a Christian in worldview, you can't take that worldview out of the way in which you see everything that's going on in the world and the way in which you see social issues. And all of that comes to bear if, in fact, you're truly informed by the conviction to which you hold. So there's really an attempt also to change the mindset of people of faith. And one way to change it, obviously, is to silence them so that they can't grow more of them. But the other thing, too, is to try to phrase the argument in such a way that it diminishes the truths and the realities that undergird that particular point of view or worldview. Father, let's talk about the human person, body, mind, spirit. What is a worldview, and how does that function? And can you really expunge it from yourself, much less from the way in which a nation conducts itself?
Well, of course not. Any more than you can take your brain out and put it on a shelf and then come back for it later. As you said, you know, you are a functioning whole. We are, in fact, a body-soul composite. That's why God created us. And the very issue of freedom has everything to do with recognizing that there's greater authority to which our freedoms, you know, are placed at that reality, that disposal. That's what I love about the Catechism. If you've never read the first part of the third part of the Catechism, which is on the moral life, you're missing really the basis for everything we're concerned about. See, it's not just about particulars, not just about a particular one of the 10 Commandments. No, it's about, see, that's the setting. The 10 Commandments are like jewels that have to be placed in a setting in order to be appreciated. And of course, each of them are rooted in what we believe the natural law to be, that our Creator in a variety of ways has made that law, that way in which things work, clear to anyone who has eyes to see and ears to hear.
Let's talk about, go ahead, Montse.
Oh, sorry. Our founder definitely understands that, and in our legal arguments, we always talk about the philosopher's God, and the idea that there is a creator or a universe or something else that you believe in that gives you those rights, so that the government isn't the one giving you your basic human rights. Because the moment that you allow for the government to be that one authority that has everything, they can take those away. So we have to make sure in a lot of our cases, like in our Pledge of Allegiance cases, when we say that any reference to God in the Pledge of Allegiance, that which we fought against Michael Newdow, the atheist activist, 3 times and won. Any time that you make a reference to God, you are reminding the government that they do not own your rights and that they can't take them away. And we have to make sure that it's always been a part of American culture, and we have to make sure that it stays there. Otherwise, we'd have to go out and scrap every single piece of religion from art, from music, from our buildings. It's astounding that the government would want to take that place away from us. They don't own us.
And that's, of course, the reason for the adjective that the Founding Fathers put into the Declaration of Independence when they were writing it up. It's inalienable rights, right? Inalienable. They cannot be taken away because they're not given by the state. And this is what we're fighting against, isn't it, Jennifer?
And they also use the phrase nature and nature's God.
That's
You know, to indicate that everybody should be able to figure this out. You know, that it's not just a particular religion, but just the idea that there is a natural religion.
Exactly.
You know, and a kind of a natural reality, that your freedom comes from and that your freedom in a sense owes allegiance to. And I think this is what drives people bonkers, you know. The idea that, you know, if you have the idea that you can completely reconstruct the social order and recreate the world in your own image, well, you know, this pesky thing called reality is a nuisance.
Well, that's why you try to create your own reality,
That's
Jennifer,
a point,
right? I mean, you know, you
Or
try to make it.
truths with a small t.
That's exactly
as
right.
opposed to a capital T.
It's very difficult to see how the government is trying to take our right to search for truth, which is what the Beckett Fund is founded on, the idea that every religion, every human being has the right to have that search and to find a greater meaning other than what we have in front of us.
Yeah. Let's talk for a moment about the call to action, because as you say, we have got to preserve and protect that which is God honoring in the culture for all of the reasons that you have just stated, and we've got to do everything that we can to reclaim that which is lost. But reclaiming is much harder than preserving and protecting at the outset. And our bishops have, I think, a stunning call to action laid out. I don't think that I've ever seen a call to action, friends, be better clarified, more easily followed. And to me, especially the area that deals with laity is so reminiscent of what we were told in the document on the laity from the Second Vatican Council, where it says that, you know, it is up to the laity to restore the temporal order. The bishops, the church, the institutional church can give us a hear, can lend its support, can help us to frame the reasons why, but in the end, this is the task of the lay faithful. And we've got to get about the business. And they're telling us how to do it. And for the first time, they're actually calling for civil disobedience if, in fact, the situation lends itself to require that as we move down the road here. I have never in my lifetime, and I don't think it's ever been done, where we have been called to civil disobedience.
Right. They don't really prefer that term, civil disobedience, as much as recognizing an unjust law is no law at all.
St. Augustine.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk about just law versus unjust law for a moment, Father.
Well, again, it has everything to do with corresponding with what we know to be those truths that can be perceived by reason as well as aided by revelation.
Yeah.
So whether a person has received this, as I said, through the revelation of faith, whatever creed, whatever, that is meant to also be aided by the use of just common sense, good reasoning ability, because it has everything to do, as you were saying, with the dignity of the human person, which is not in any way restricted to a particular creed or code or whatever.
And that's the gold standard upon which we look at these things.
Of course, and this, if you really look at this law and you think about what this mandate is doing, it's giving religious organizations, it says that they have a choice, but they actually have no choice. You can either go against everything that you believe in and violate your conscience, or pay heavy, heavy crippling fines that in the end, because they're incremental, will probably bankrupt most of these charities, and you end up hurting the poor and the needy that they serve.
Yeah, and the accommodation that President Obama made is no accommodation, because in order for that to be carried out, everybody within that institution would have to be of the same religious persuasion.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about all of the ministries that are famous for serving the sick and the poor and the needy, Mother Teresa's ministry would have to take the money from where they serve to pay the fines, because there's no way that they would be willing to pay for contraceptive, sterilization, and abortifacient drugs. There's no way that they should be forced to go against everything that they believe in and their founding principles to accommodate the government.
Yes, indeed. I just want to let you all know that we want to involve you in the discussion, friends, and we're going to have those numbers up there for you in just a moment so that you can give us a call and join us live here on this special live show edition of Women of Grace. Jennifer, you had something to say there.
I wanted to just read this passage out of the letter, and I would encourage everybody to go find this online, because it's not that hard to find. National Catholic Register has an article about it and a link directly to this, but this is just ringing stuff. In the face of an unjust law, the bishops say, an accommodation is not to be sought, especially by resorting to equivocal words and deceptive practices. Gosh, I wonder what they have in mind there. If we face today the prospect of unjust laws, then Catholics in America, in solidarity with our fellow citizens, must have the courage not to obey them. No American desires this. No Catholic welcomes it. But if it should fall upon us, we must discharge it as a duty of citizenship and an obligation of faith. They're not fooling around here.
No, they're not fooling around at all. And I think it's extremely important to realize that what they're encouraging us to do, obviously, is to recognize the fact that we are Catholics and we are citizens, that we're not those second-class citizens, and that we cannot divorce either of those two realities from ourselves as human persons, and we've got to abide by both of those. They're not asking for an accommodation for religion either. They're asking for the same rights that can be enjoyed by all people, and that religion should not be relegated to a marginalized reality in American life as if that were possible.
You know, many people don't realize that even those terms that are part of the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson wrote for us, predate him by decades.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, this was part of the thought of that period of time that recognized, again, those, whether you use the word inalienable or unalienable,
Right.
the unalienable cannot be taken away by anybody under any circumstances. Inalienable, you have the right to surrender if you choose. But the reality is that this was a growing understanding of this defense of the human person that actually goes back centuries before that. You know, this is what the Magna Carta was about, all
Right.
of this.
Well, you know, and here's the thing, and I think, Jennifer, you've touched on this and you've stated it well, but I kind of want to underscore it. We're really talking about the rising up of a new America. We are not talking about, some kind of evolving proposition. This is a change. This is a dramatic break from our history. It's a dramatic break from the purposes for which this country was founded. It's a dramatic break from anything that we have known as citizens. And, you know, Father, you often use the analogy of, once the camel gets its nose into the tent. Well, the camel's nose is more than into the tent. The camel's in the tent. And we've got to be aware of what's happening, and we can't take our heads and put them under the sand like an ostrich and pretend it's not going on. And I think that our bishops, are encouraging us to wake up. They don't want for us to be complacent. They don't want for us to be apathetic. They want for us to be active. And we've got to hear that, and we've got to let that message resonate and figure out how it is that each one of us can participate in this good enterprise of basically saving the United States of America according to the way in which the country was founded to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But remember, this is the act of a committee.
Yeah.
All right. Not all the bishops took part in the writing of this document,
No.
nor have they fully endorsed it
Yet.
individually. But
It's
this
very new.
committee will certainly, as they encourage, they call everybody to task, including their fellow bishops,
Yes, they
their
do.
priests, the laity, as you said, those involved in special apostolates like ours in media, etc. There's a call for everybody in the midst of this.
Yeah. And we want you
general
to
call.
hear the call. We want you to get active with the call. We want you to get out there. We want you to be a voice for truth in a day and time and culture that is infatuated with deception. We've got to be clear. Well, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, I've got exciting news for you. We are going to meet the winner of our Women of Grace 25th anniversary video contest. We sure are. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, friends. I am so pleased to take this opportunity to announce to you the winner of the Women of Grace 25th Anniversary Video Contest. Congratulations to Cara Russo of Galilee, Rhode Island. Here's Cara Russo and her winning video.
Hi, Johnnette. My name is Cara Russo, and I'm in Galilee, Rhode Island. I want to let you know why I love Women of Grace. Women of Grace cares about the exact same things that I care about. Everything from your love of God, your love of Mary, your love of the saints, and all of the beautiful theological issues that you cover, with Father Ed's help, of course, are so inspiring to me. Women of Grace is an important source of information for me about the many cultural issues that we as people of God are facing today. Faith and morality are under attack like never before, and Women of Grace is like an army bunker where we can go to get our ammunition and our supplies in the form of information and truth so that we can be effective witnesses for Christ and so that we can be better able to withstand the onslaught and the lies of the enemy. I also find Women of Grace is a great tool to bring that truth to family and friends and even acquaintances. I also love your guests like Mary Jo Anderson, for example, who speaks so eloquently about the radical same-sex agenda and the immense ramifications that agenda has, undermining the family, corroding morality, and even attacking our religious freedom.
You know, as we listen to Kara, certainly her enthusiasm is great, yes. but what this reminds me of, and it's something that you mentioned to me, Jennifer, because I had shared it with you yesterday, and that is that so many of the women who have become involved in Women of Grace are really permitting their faith to inform them in the public square. We've had women who are running for political offices. We have women who have testified in their various communities regarding laws that they see as unjust, unfair. We have women who have joined other apostolic outreaches and really have taken up the charge to transform this culture one woman at a time. And I'd just like to say that, you know, as we were really prayerfully considering Women of Grace after the number of years that we've been offering this to women, we were thinking about what is the Lord saying to us? And what came to us was a passage from sacred scripture, Esther 4:14. And in that particular passage, you know, Mordecai says to Esther, how do you not know that you have gained entrance basically into the palace of the king for such a time as this? And, you know, this is exactly what we feel God is doing through his daughters in this our day and time. He's raising up, just as Kara said, an army of holy women who are willing to go into the public square armed with the ammunition of faith, with truth and love, conviction, to transform this world. And he's given us life for such a time as this. And I think that this is why Montse's a member of the Society of Mankind
but
at this moment,
true.
and you, Father, and myself as well.
It's definitely true. If we don't have the women who are against what's going on in society right now speaking out, no one knows that they exist.
Sure.
No one knows that there's an issue here, or that someone is actually against this.
That's right.
There was a poll in the New York Times that showed that there are more than half of the women in the United States are against what the government is trying to do with the HHS mandate, and that they think that it's unjust to force religious organizations and businesses to cover practices that go against their religious convictions.
That's right.
And that's all women. That's not just women of the same faith. It's women with faith, without faith, who just find that this is an injustice. But they're in a poll, but they're not out in the media speaking and engaging people in conversation to try to convince them of what they believe.
That's right. And this is what we've got to do. This is absolutely what we've got to do. I want to go to our first caller. We've got James giving us a call today from the great state of Pennsylvania, my home state. Hey, James, how are you?
Happy Easter. Christ is risen. Hallelujah.
He is risen indeed. Hallelujah.
Amen. Now, Mike, do you recommend much stronger public witness, much firmer civil disobedience if these unjust laws are enforced? For example, if a fine is levied, refuse to pay the fine. If we're arrested, go to jail. I'll be willing to go. We can never give up. I'd like your thoughts on that.
Thanks, James, for a very good question. And I guess what James is asking us to do is to define civil disobedience of an unjust law according to the plan that the bishops have laid out for us. And I think that they've been rather clear with it. Father Ed?
Well, certainly there are limits in terms of what is consistent with the gospel. In other words, our reactions are never going to be violent or going to fly in the face of what, again, our Lord would give us in terms of right response. Sometimes that response is going to be silence in the face of that opposition and the ridicule that certainly will continue to come, has been coming for a long period of time anyway.
You know, the way in which this particular statement is formatted and outlined it brings us to a bit of a crescendo. And the last next to the last section is headed Martyrs Around the World. And it's a reminder, as John Paul II reminded us, of the great gift of martyrdom. And JP2, towards the end of his pontificate, urged us to pray for the gift of martyrdom if, in fact, you know, we are offered that crown of witness. And then the bishops finish with the heading, All the Energies the Catholic Community Can Muster, which is a quote from Cardinal Mahoney. And that means that they're asking us to consider, you know, the ultimate sacrifice, should it come to that, but to muster everything that we can do, all of our energies, to get out there and to be a voice for truth. And I would say yes, as vociferously as we can be. Would you agree?
Well, I think everything depends on the situation. I mean, I think we're a long way from having one unified response where we're all going to do the same thing. But it was extremely encouraging to see the rallies for religious liberty around the country that took place on March 23rd.
Yes.
You know, that was a project, you know, I don't know who came up with that idea.
It was the Pro-Life Action League.
But it was a great idea.
We co-sponsored the rallies, and I mean, you had 65 million Americans come out in 160 cities in the U.S.
It was amazing.
It was incredible.
It was really amazing.
And it wasn't
1,000.
Sorry, 1,000. Yes.
Sorry,
I wish it was
65,000. I wish it was million.
That's a huge
so
number.
sorry, 65,000. And but it was a broad coalition of
That's
support.
right.
It
That's
wasn't
right.
just Catholics. It wasn't just
Yes.
Protestants.
Right.
It was this broad coalition of people who were recognizing this unjust law.
That's right.
And that can be that was extremely effective, I think. But I think there's also a place for people to do something locally that makes sense in their own local context. And
Well, this is what they're
sometimes-
asking us to do
yes,
specifically.
that's exactly right. And so, James in Pennsylvania, wherever you are, James, listening to us, you know, you try to think about what's going on in your place where you can make the point.
Right.
And sometimes a bit of humor can be a good thing and can go a long way, you know,
Well,
because
yes.
I mean, it's a serious matter. You know, of course, we have
course,
to take
yeah.
it's a serious matter, but sometimes if you can have a little fun at the other person's expense or just have a little fun, it's helpful, right?
I'm
because
all
it's
for fun,
attractive.
Jennifer.
It's attractive. Exactly.
All over. And
Exactly.
I think that you're right. And we do want to state that, of course, this is the bishop's last. You know,
Last resort. Right,
last
right.
response. But we've got to make use of all of the opportunities that present themselves.
I can say that the first case that the Becket Fund took in order against this mandate was Belmont Abbey College. It's a small college in North Carolina. It's a Catholic college, and there, the president of the college did say, I really hope that the government will come out with some kind of an accommodation for us, or I would be willing to close the doors of the college.
I remember that statement.
And it makes a difference when you're asking for something in the public square, saying, I want to find a way to compromise. I want to find a way to live my full rights, but at the same time, I know that there is going to be a cost if they're not respected.
Well, and I think that this is what we have to get around our heads around, James, and that is that there's going to be a cost. It might simply be a cost in terms of those who have called have called us a friend and no longer do. Certainly we might lose human respect in the eyes of some people because of this. We might end up losing a position or a job as a result of this. I'm thinking of healthcare workers, for example.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I can give you another example of another case we have in Washington State where you have a pharmacy and two pharmacists, and two of those pharmacists, one of them lost their job because they didn't want to dispense the morning after pill. And the pharmacy itself was losing business. You had Governor Christine Gregoire outside picketing, saying that they should boycott this pharmacy because it wasn't providing these services, even though they were willing to give referrals to other pharmacies. So you're getting to a point where your job is at stake, and Margot and Rhonda were willing to give up their job because of what they believed in. But why should an American be forced by the government to choose between their life and their livelihood?
Well, it's all for the sake of this agenda, this new worldview that's coming into place. We're going to go to Michelle. She's calling us from New York today. Let's listen to what her question is. Michelle?
Hi, Johnnette. I just wanted to say thank you so much for Women of Grace, and thank you, Father Ed, for your vocation, and thank you, everybody, for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. We certainly do appreciate that. Every one of us has to do what God is asking us to do today, and we've got to open the ears of our heart to hear what He's saying. The Holy Spirit is breathing new life into His people, and hopefully we will receive that new life and we'll move in the flow of that. And if we do, we're going to see great things that are happening. What do you say to individuals who are looking for a way to get involved?
Well, it depends on your own vocation and your own state in life. But one of the things that we do at the Ruth Institute is to try to help people to learn how to express themselves.
Yes.
So when people sign up for the Ruth Institute newsletter, they get material. They get something in their inbox in their email every week that either explains what the issues are about, or gives them some tip about how to talk about it.
Talking points.
Talking points. We have a talking point every week, and we also have an action item every week. So sometimes it's show up at the rally. For example, we did that one, or watch Dr. Morris on Women of Grace. So we have different ways that people can be involved, but it all has to do with becoming comfortable and confident talking about what you know in your heart to be true. I mean, I think the people who are drawn to our organizations, all of us, they know in their heart what's true, but they can't get it out. They can't express themselves. So we try to offer training sometimes on how to express yourself.
Yeah.
We give people an opportunity to write and to go participate in blogs and things like that.
Yes.
Blogs are actually a good thing in a way because it gives you a chance to try out arguments and you can kind of practice and you kind of see how people react.
Right.
And one of the things that you'll see if you do very much of that, you know, you get into a little blog war with somebody, is you'll find out that the people on the other side don't really have that much to say. They actually make a lot of noise. And in fact, I just have an article that I just wrote that's on mercatornet.com, you know, which is a pro-family website in Australia. You know, basically, they don't make arguments. They just kind of make a lot of racket to distract you.
Well, the arguments that they do make are specious arguments. They don't hold up. They're inherently flawed, and they fall apart if you investigate.
But look at this whole concept of the war against women. Okay,
just wrong.
That's not an argument.
No, it's not an argument.
It's not an argument.
It's
It's noise. It's
That's right.
noise. And what it
and
does.
nothing substantiates it.
No, it
That's right.
You know, because women are making more money than men in most cases
But that's
for the
why
same
it's
jobs.
so important, I think, what you're saying in terms of learning how to talk about things, but also getting informed. It's the number one thing that you can do.
Right.
Go on our websites, look for the talking points, don't believe what the media is telling you. Don't listen to the messages and the mismessaging that is going on. The idea that there's a compromise out there doesn't exist. There is no compromise. No law has been written to fix what is in that mandate.
No, and be very well aware of if that the strategies that are employed are very clever strategies, and that nothing happens by coincidence or happenstance. It's all rather well calculated.
Right. Sure.
And so you've got to know that you know. We have to be discriminating viewers, discriminating listeners, and discriminating thinkers. And by that I mean we've got to use the head God gave us and the intelligence He invested in us and our capacity to look and to see what's going on and evaluate. Father.
Hear what the bishop said, though. It says, insisting that our liberties as Americans be respected, we know as bishops that what our Holy Father said is true. This work belongs to, quote, an engaged, first requirement, articulate, second requirement, and well-formed Catholic laity endowed with a strong critical sense vis-a-vis the dominant culture.
There you go. Excellent. We've got to go to a break. When we come back, more with our guest today, Father Edmund Sylvia Monse Alvarado and Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse. We're going to take more calls, so pick up the phone, give us a buzz. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back, friends. We are visiting with our guest today, Father Edmund Sylvia Monse Alvarado from the Becket Fund, and we are also visiting with Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse, who's the founder of the Ruth Institute. She also happens to be a doctor of economics. We want to invite you to get out to our website, www.womenofgrace.com. I want to tell you that everything that we produce is available for you there, so get out there and take a look. And we also want you to join WOG Exclusive. It is our subscribership program. Our video presentations, our audio presentations, a robust library, all available for you there at www.womenofgrace.com. Click WOG Exclusive and read all about it. We have Candy with us. She's calling us from Jamaica today, so let's go to Candy. Hey, Candy, how are you? Is Candy with us? Nope. Okay, I guess Candy isn't with us. I know, Monse, you had something you wanted to say.
Oh, well, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that women are definitely the missing voice. And that we are going to hear all of these messages back and forth from the media trying to distract us, and we have to make sure that we're focused and informed.
Well, and I think obviously we're in a political year, and we have to remember that. And of course, the women's vote is a big vote, and I have a feeling that this whole situation with the HHS mandate, focusing on women's health, and let's face it, it's not healthy, on women's health, was an attempt to ingratiate the women's vote. But the reality is, just like you're saying, Montse, there are many, many women who disagree with this, and many who see right through it to the reality of it, which is that this is a religious liberties issue.
Yeah, there are many myths out there, like the myth that this is only coming from the Catholic leadership and this is a Catholic issue.
Right.
That's definitely not true. I mean, you
That's
have
right.
this affects Muslims, this affects Jews, it affects all religions out there and individuals without a religion, and it's going to be forcing people to go against their heart of hearts and their mind of minds, their religious
That's right.
convictions and their
That's right.
conscience.
It's this attempt at marginalization. We have Anastasia with us from Ohio today. How are you, Anastasia?
I'm doing fine, Johnnette. I appreciate what you guys do at Women of Grace and EWTN.
Thank you.
My concern is, and I have never in all the talking heard this addressed in regards to the HHS mandate, how will this impact the women's health clinics that have been doing such a wonderful job on counteracting the Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics in the neighborhoods? Do the people, would they have to be totally volunteer and not be, requiring any kind of medical insurance to get around that? And my other question is there an agency in place that could possibly use billboards to put the word out, since the secular media is not representing the Christian Catholic views on a lot of this stuff, maybe with a little line and then a website that people might go out of curiosity and access where they might normally not know to go there.
Thank you for your call, Anastasia. What good questions you ask. And starting with the last one first, I think that would be a marvelous campaign. A billboard campaign is one way that laity can get involved and do a great deal of good.
It's on bumper stickers. I saw one just in the parking lot just yesterday, which said, question the liberal media, and then gave a resource where you could go and do some fact checking.
Yeah.
Do you know, one of the exciting things about being alive at this particular time is that there's so much new media that ordinary people can engage.
That's
so
right.
the big media and
Yes.
the big government and the big business and big pharmacy, all of those big institutions, they don't run the messaging anymore. So if you have your own blog, you can have an impact. If you have, anybody can make bumper stickers and T-shirts
Right.
and stick them out there. So there's a lot of ways that people can be engaged, and so this business of a billboard as a way of pointing people to some of those engagements, that's a really great idea. I hope Anastasia in Ohio will do that and create a campaign and that we'll hear about it. You call us and let us know, okay, if you decide to do that.
Well, and let me just say, this is one of the things that we're so excited about with regard to women today, because the ideas are coming, and so many good projects, so many good institutes, so many good apostolates, so many good outreaches have been started right around a kitchen table. Yeah. And there's at least 2 represented on this set today.
Yeah, no kidding.
and the thing of it is, if God gives you an idea, and he plants that idea in your heart, it may well be that he's planting it there because he wants you to do it. And be assured of the fact that the grace is there to carry out the task that he's entrusting to you. And you don't experience the grace before you start moving. See, this is what we have to understand, that it's when you lift the foot and you start moving that the grace comes to take that step and the next step. So that's cooperation with grace. So Anastasia, take it to prayer. Maybe you're the one. And wouldn't that be a grand thing? Go ahead,
We actually had a petition start that way, where we realized, okay, there's a need, someone has to rise up and change and someone in our office drafted a petition, and we got different organizations to join with us, and we are turning in those signatures to the White House next week.
Excellent.
It's IBelievePetition.org, and it's a wonderful movement where you have the Pro-Life Action League also had a petition at the marches on the 23rd, and they're going to have another march in June that we're all going to be joining together to see if we can get more people to come out, sign more petitions, and really raise their voice in that way. It's the little things that you do as well.
Right.
Going on a website, looking at the information so you have the right information, signing your name on a petition. If you don't have the full courage yet to go out and fundraise and get that billboard out, then do something else. But do something.
Right.
Yes,
do
and
something.
you know what? I like that I'm glad you reminded me of this, because showing up for an event is actually a very important action step that you can take. Okay.
That's right.
So that when you all started those rallies, the fact that people came mattered, because you're sitting there, in San Diego, everybody's sitting there looking around and go, wow, I'm not the only whack job who thinks like this. Everybody thinks this. Look at
That's
you.
right.
Totally
So it's
right.
very important.
Well,
anyone can show up, so you need to show up. I would say that's number one.
The word of our Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, I think, is so good here: solidarity.
Yes.
He called us to solidarity. Show the solidarity. Anybody want to respond to Anastasia's first question?
Well, what was she really asking? So that if you were a crisis pregnancy clinic, you would be forced
how this would
as
affect
well?
you?
Yes.
It depends on the number of employees that they have. So it does. The law does shift in that way, and someone would have to go in and evaluate the specific clinic that she's talking about. But I can't say. I mean, this is going to affect every single program. If they're a part of a larger employer, then it's definitely going to affect them. It's the government coming in to your pockets, taking that money and saying you're going to have to spend it the way that we say. And if you don't want to spend it that way, you're going to have heavy, heavy fines.
There you go. Judy from Ohio giving us a call today. Judy, how are you?
Great. I'm so glad you're having this discussion, Johnnette. For the first time in my life, I'm truly frightened. This administration is finally showing its true colors. It reminds me of what was going on in the 40s when Hitler marched through Europe, silencing the church. I never thought I'd live to see the day here, but I'm awake now, and I'm going to go back to church as often as I can, while I still can. That's my comment. Thank you for listening.
Excellent, Judy. And that's the positive first step. And when you say go back to church, I don't know if that means that you've been away from the church, but I praise and thank God that you're awake now.
Yeah.
And all of us have got to realize that, the capacity to do anything finds its roots in God's life in us. And so we need to be nurturing our life of faith. That's one of the most positive things that we can do, because no matter what the enemy tries to hurl at us, if we in fact are rooted in the one who is the way, the truth, and the life, we have the capacity to face all things through him, and nothing is impossible with him. And I often tell our women of grace, nobody takes the life of a martyr. Nobody takes a martyr's life, because a martyr gives his life for the one who is greater than he. And it's an act of surrender and love. So my point being there that if we're rooted, then we can do all things through Christ Jesus. Does it mean that we're not going to have challenging times? We have to prepare ourselves for that. We're in challenging times, and we've been in them. But God is with us through it all.
One of the things that stands out so great in terms of this document and the writings of people like Archbishop Chaput, etc., is the necessity for moral courage.
That's right.
And we've got a ways to go. We have, as a society, been lulled into something less than that.
That's right. I'd like to take one more call before our program comes to an end today. We've got Deborah giving us a call from the state in which I currently live, the great state of Florida. Hey, Deborah, how are you?
Good, thank you. I'm a minister of the Pentecostal faith. What can I do to help?
Well, God bless you 1,000 times. Thank you for calling us. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Deborah. Absolutely. Well, I think it's clear. I think that you have to know the truth and be willing to proclaim the truth. And you know the truth, and His name is Jesus Christ. You know that these truths are self-evident truths, and we've got to do everything that we can. You've got to preach to your congregation. If God's put you in that position, you've got to preach the truth. You've got to tell them the realities of what is going on. Anybody else want to comment?
One thing I think that our non-Catholic brothers and sisters can do that I think would be really helpful is for you to write to Catholic institutions, or even the bishop maybe, and talk to them. Just write them a polite and encouraging letter saying, I'm a Pentecostal minister, and here's what it would mean to me if you guys lose. If the Catholic Church loses this battle, it will be terrible for me because.
Yeah.
And you explain it, and I think that would mean a lot to. That'd mean a lot to the bishop.
And explaining to your congregation that this is an issue that is going to affect you as well. This isn't a Catholic issue at all.
Right.
This is an issue for everyone.
Yes.
And if this is limited for the Catholic bishops, it's going to be limited for absolutely everyone else, because any kind of religious institution is going to have to pay these fines if they have a problem with providing these services.
And Deborah, you can get out there into the public square as a minister in the Pentecostal Church. Write a letter to your editor. Speak in favor of the advances that are being made through the Catholic efforts here. Tell them that you see that this affects you too, because it's trying to be couched in simply, a Catholic perspective here and against the Catholic Church. We are out of time. It's been wonderful to have you here today, and I thank you so very, very much for everything that you have said, for all that you are doing. We thank you, friends, for being with us too. It's absolutely wonderful to have this opportunity, and we love when you give us a call. So continue to watch Women of Grace. Do pray for us. We've got the program available for you at www.womenofgrace.com. God bless you. Bye-bye now.